when my husband's slap sent me crashing to the floor at my own birthday party. The entire room gasped, right up until a low laugh slipped from my mouth and froze him in place. Because he didn't know something I did. The moment his hand touched my face, the world he thought he controlled began to collapse. Before I tell you everything, do me a quick favor. Tap subscribe and comment where you're watching from, so this story reaches more people. Now let's begin. My name is Amelia Cross, and the night everything unraveled had begun the same way it always did in my marriage. Perfectly curated by people who believed perfection was a weapon. 12 hours earlier, the sunrise in Ravenford Heights filtered through curtains my mother-in-law insisted we buy Belgian linen imported, a statement piece, she'd said. I didn't care about curtains anymore. I cared about the email glowing on my laptop screen. The Cross Legacy Trust disbursement requires a minimum of 5 continuous years of marriage. No legal separation filings within that period. My chest tightened. This was the missing clause, one I'd been searching for since the moment I realized something was wrong with my husband, Nathan Cross, heir to one of Ravenford's oldest fortunes. Something had hollowed him out over the years. Something or someone. My hands shook as I forwarded the document to my encrypted server. One more piece in a plan I'd been quietly building for months. I shut the laptop just as the bathroom door opened. Steam drifted across the room, and Nathan stepped out with a towel around his waist, handsome as ever but empty behind the eyes. The part of him I feared was no longer truly his. "Happy birthday, Amelia," he said, kissing my cheek with lips that had gone cold. He always said the right words. He just said them like someone else had scripted them for him. "Mother's excited about tonight," he added. Of course she was. Lydia Cross had planned the entire rooftop celebration at Azure Harbor Club, Ravenford's most exclusive venue, but she hadn't planned it to celebrate me. Lydia planned nothing without a reason. He glanced at my closed laptop. Work? Even today. Just a merger review. I lied smoothly. Once, he would have teased me for working too much. Now he just nodded, expression neutral. The second he left for the family offices, I retreated to my walk-in closet, the only room without surveillance. Lydia had installed cameras during last year's renovation as a security measure. She didn't know I'd found every hidden device 3 months ago. I pressed my thumb to a concealed panel. A hidden compartment opened, revealing 3 burner phones, a backup laptop, 2 encrypted hard drives, and every record I'd secretly gathered on the Cross family. For 3 years, I had played the flawless wife, attorney at Perez and Wilton, polished at galas, impeccable in public, supportive in private. And all the while I collected evidence. It began when I noticed financial irregularities in family accounts, transfers to remote shell entities with vague descriptions. Then came the shifts in Nathan's behavior. Subtle at first, then disturbing. He would stop mid-conversation, eyes glazed, then snap back like nothing happened. Lydia whispered instructions at family dinners, and a moment later he changed tone or opinion. One day I found him watching a video his cousin sent, just staring hollow. That night I bought the first burner phone. Wave by wave, truth gathered. Payments to a behavioral consultant, Dr. Arlen Wade, who wasn't registered anywhere. Offshore transactions disguised as donations. Recordings of Lydia discussing conditioning methods. Correspondence where family members spoke of ensuring Nathan's predictive compliance. I copied every file, every sound, every ledger line. By the time I finished getting ready for court that morning, the puzzle was almost complete. All that remained was timing. Tonight, at my birthday celebration, the Cross family intended to execute something. A shift, a move, a trap. But they didn't know I had already set one of my own. By evening, the Azure Harbor Club shimmered, like a jewel above the water. The rooftop was draped with glass chandeliers, suspended like floating stars. Lydia had reserved the entire terrace. Of course she had. Her empire demanded spectacle. She greeted me with a smile warm enough to melt gold, but eyes sharp enough to slice through stone. "Darling, you look stunning," she said through perfectly painted lips. "And you're glowing," I replied. "You must be thrilled everything is going exactly as you planned." Her grip on my arm tightened for half a second. A tell. Inside, Ravenford's elite awaited, politicians, CEOs, judges, university chairs. Not a single person I had invited. They weren't here for me. They were here for her. For the Cross legacy. Nathan moved through the crowd like a ghost, wearing his own face. Polite smiles, rehearsed pleasantries. He didn't even notice I wore red instead of the blue gown his mother insisted upon. Dr. Arlen Wade arrived shortly after. The man whose name appeared too many times in their secret transfers. His handshake was clinical, his eyes scanning me with unsettling precision. Lydia hovered close enough to monitor his and Nathan's every move. During dinner, Lydia rose to give a toast. "For 5 years," she said, her voice a silk mask, "Amelia has been everything we hoped for and more." 5 years. The trust requirement. She wanted every ear in the room to hear it. Nathan sat beside me, shoulders rigid. "And tonight," she continued, "we honor not just her birthday, but the future of our family." A signal. A trigger. She leaned to Nathan's ear and whispered something. I saw the shift. I saw his pupils shrink. I saw the programmed response activate. This was it, the moment I'd known was coming. Nathan stood. The crowd hushed. "You've betrayed us," he said, voice drained of humanity. And before I could rise, his hand cracked across my face. The rooftop went silent. I hit the floor, and then I laughed. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the Cross family had just given me everything I needed. From across the stunned crowd, Lydia's face blanched. She had no idea what was coming, and I hadn't even begun. My laughter rolled across the rooftop like a blade disguised as music. Phones were already raised, recording everything. The slap, the silence, the moment the Cross family lost control of their own narrative. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Lydia stepped forward, expression frozen somewhere between outrage and calculation. "Nathan," she said sharply, "help your wife up. She's clearly overwhelmed." But Nathan didn't move. He stared at his hand as if it belonged to someone else. Something else. That was the first crack. I stood on my own, wiped blood from my lip with a linen napkin, and smiled at the room full of Ravenford's elite. "For those of you recording," I said lightly, "don't stop." A ripple of discomfort moved through the crowd. Lydia's eyes sharpened. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Me." I tilted my head, just allowing everyone to witness exactly how your little conditioning program works. Dr. Arlen Wade flinched. That alone told the truth. Lydia recovered quickly her talent. "Amelia, dear, you're upset. This is not the time." "Oh, I think it is." I raised my phone and tapped the screen, casually, especially since my evidence just auto-sent to several agencies. A few guests gasped. Others stepped back, suddenly unwilling to stand too close to the Cross implosion. Lydia's mask slipped, just for a second. Then she snapped at William Cross, Nathan's cousin. "Stop her!" But William didn't move. He had just received a news alert on his phone and looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. I faced the crowd. Let me summarize for those unfamiliar with the family's practices. Payments disguised as behavioral consulting. Shell accounts funding a program designed to control Nathan since he was a teenager. Offshore transfers through charities. And a trust clause requiring our marriage to stay intact so long as I stayed obedient. Someone whispered, "My God." Another, "Is she serious?" Lydia lunged forward. "Enough." I stepped back, lifting a hand. "Careful, Lydia. Try something else, and this entire terrace will see how far your programming goes." Nathan suddenly staggered, clutching the edge of a table. "Amelia, I didn't mean to." His voice trembled. I don't understand why I did that. His programming was cracking under the weight of too much contradiction. You weren't acting freely, I told him softly. That's the point. Before anything else could unfold, the elevator chimed. 2 plainclothes agents stepped out. I felt my heart steady. Right on time. They approached with the calm precision of people who didn't need to shout to be obeyed. Mrs. Amelia Cross, one asked. Yes. We received your evidence packet. We need to speak with several individuals here tonight. Gasps filled the air like the first drops of a storm. Lydia tried to pull authority around herself like a shawl. This is a private family event. You have no right. The agent handed her a warrant, so thick it could have been a manuscript. We do. Guests were already filming, their moral compasses spinning now that the power dynamic had shifted. Everyone implicated will be asked to remain for questioning, the agent announced. No one leaves. The sense of control Lydia had spent years cultivating evaporated in a single breath. She spun toward me. You planned this. Of course I did, I said. Did you think I'd endure your games forever? Her chin trembled. You'll destroy this family. No, I whispered, leaning in. You destroyed it. I'm just turning on the lights. Before she could respond, Dr. Wade tried to slip toward the exit. An agent intercepted him. Dr. Arlen Wade? He froze. We'd like to discuss your financial ties to the Cross Foundation. His complexion turned the shade of old paper. Lydia's voice cracked. Arlen, don't say a word. But her influence was dissolving. He was weighing loyalty against prison time, and prison time was winning. Nathan watched, horrified, like a man awakening in a burning house. Mother, he whispered, what did you do to me? Lydia reached for him. Everything I did was to protect the family. No, he said, stepping back. You did it to protect control. His voice broke. And you stole mine. It startled her. For the first time, she looked small, human, cornered. Then the agent turned to Nathan. Sir, we'll need you to come with us for an interview. I didn't choose this, he said, panic rising. I didn't know what they were doing. We understand, the agent said calmly, but we need your statement. Nathan looked at me, eyes wide with shame and something else, recognition. I'm sorry, Amelia, he whispered. I don't know who I am without them. A sad truth, one we would both have to face. The agents ushered him toward the elevator. Lydia lunged, but another agent blocked her. I'm his mother. And he's an adult, the agent replied, her face twisted with rage, fear, and disbelief. As she struggled, I looked around at the rooftop, at the chandeliers swaying slightly in the breeze, the tables adorned with orchids, the harbor glowing beyond the glass railings. The perfect stage, the perfect fall. Lydia turned her fury on me. You think you've won. I smoothed the napkin stained with my blood. No, this isn't about winning. She blinked. This is about ending what you started. Her breath caught. And trust me, I said, stepping closer, lowering my voice so only she heard. I'm not finished. Agents moved through the crowd, asking for phones, devices, statements. Sirens echoed faintly from the street below. A dynasty was collapsing. A truth was rising. And the woman who once pulled every string was discovering she wasn't untouchable. Not anymore. The rooftop emptied slowly, like a leaking ship where everyone understood the vessel was going down but pretended they weren't scrambling for lifeboats. Agents escorted guests one by one to the lower floors for statements, and the once glittering terrace looked stripped of power, of illusion, of every carefully engineered smile. I stood near the railing, letting the cold harbor wind wash over my bruised cheek. For the first time in a long time, I felt something like air entering my lungs freely. No leash, no monitoring, no Lydia watching every micro-expression. Just the quiet aftermath of truth detonating. Agent Rivera approached me with a tablet in hand. "We'll need your formal narrative tomorrow, Ms. Cross. Tonight, we stabilize the scene and secure the primary suspects." "Primary suspects," I echoed softly. "That includes Lydia?" A faint nod, and several others. "The financial pattern you uncovered, it's significant." Significant. That was one word for the empire she'd built on manipulation and offshore threads. As Rivera walked away, my eyes settled on Lydia, surrounded by 2 agents who would not let her anywhere near the elevator without clearance. Her composure had cracked into something brittle and unnatural, her posture still upright, but the foundation gone. She looked at me across the terrace, and for a moment her anger dipped into something colder, almost desperate. Good. Let her feel the storm she'd crafted. I turned away when I heard rapid footsteps. It was Edward Cross, Nathan's younger cousin, the golden boy who'd been groomed for public image. His hands shook as he approached. "Amelia," he whispered, voice cracking. "Please tell them." I didn't know. I never touched any of those accounts. I studied him. Edward was the type Lydia loved. Loyal, obedient, simple to guide. The family's perfect mask. "Whether you knew or not," I said calmly, "they'll decide based on records." His breath hitched, as if I had sentenced him myself. But he wasn't my concern. My concern was the man who had walked onto that elevator an hour ago, wearing the expression of someone who realized he'd never once steered his own life. Nathan. For reasons I refused to examine too closely, that still mattered. I returned home escorted by a federal vehicle. The Cross brownstone, Lydia's gift to us, looked different now. Looming. Hollow. A house built from expectations rather than warmth. Inside, the silence was too clean, too rehearsed. I went to the walk-in closet and opened the secret compartment one last time. The drives were gone, seized as evidence. The compartment felt like a skeleton of the life I had lived behind masks. For years, I had prepared for escape, and simultaneously, for battle. The contradiction defined my marriage. I touched the empty space where the first burner phone had lived. The first step I ever took toward freeing him and myself. My phone buzzed. Rivera again. "Mrs. Cross, just updating you," his text read. "Nathan is cooperating. He asked if he could contact you, but we denied it for tonight." I didn't know how to feel about that. I stared out at the rain-blurred windows of Ravenford Heights. How many powerful people had traded secrets, protection, influence, while a boy was carved into a vessel for family legacy. Anger pulsed through me. Not the hot rage from the rooftop, but a colder, steadier fire that meant I wasn't done fighting. That evening, I returned to the brownstone to pack a few essentials. I wasn't staying another night under that roof. When I opened the bedroom door, I found something on the floor. Something that hadn't been there that morning. A white envelope. No name. No markings. Just an embossed seal on the flap. The Cross family seal. My stomach dropped. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. For words in Lydia's handwriting. Slanted. Cold. Elegant. "This isn't over." A chill crept up my spine. Because even without her empire, without influence, without money, a person like Lydia Cross didn't go quiet. She adapted. She survived. She hunted. And now she had nothing left to lose. I folded the note, slid it into my pocket, and locked the brownstone behind me. The war wasn't over. It was about to turn personal. I didn't sleep that night. Lydia's note sat on the hotel nightstand like a living thing. Its 4 words echoing every time I closed my eyes. This isn't over. A threat from a woman who had lost everything, and was therefore capable of anything. By morning, Rivera called again. "Amelia, you need to come to headquarters," he said. Something new surfaced. Not the sentence anyone wants to hear before coffee. I arrived 20 minutes later, escorted into a briefing room where 2 analysts, Rivera, and a federal prosecutor sat around a table strewn with documents and digital screens. Rivera didn't waste time. Dr. Wade submitted additional files overnight. I braced myself. These, he said, tapping a stack of printouts, detailed the programming phases Nathan underwent between ages 12 and 25. There's extensive documentation on emotional triggers, behavioral resets, even substance-assisted sessions. My stomach tightened painfully. Substance-assisted. Yes, a mild suppressant administered during certain sessions. According to Wade, Lydia insisted on complete compliance. The room felt colder. Why show me this? I asked, though I already sensed the answer. The prosecutor slid a tablet across the table. Because your name appears in the later records. My pulse stopped. What? Rivera pointed to the screen. 3 months before you and Nathan met, Lydia requested a compatibility assessment, not for love or personality, but for control. She had Dr. Wade evaluate which traits in a partner would best stabilize Nathan's responses. Cold spread through my chest. She wasn't assessing me, I whispered. She was assessing the type of woman who could be shaped into the role she wanted. Correct, the prosecutor said. And then your background surfaced, law degree, stable emotional profile, no history of unpredictable behavior. You became the ideal candidate. Ideal. For a system designed to control her son, like property. And once you were in the family, Rivera added, your presence became part of the conditioning. Stability indicators were linked to interactions with you. A sick realization pierced me. You're saying that being with me made it easier for them to manipulate him? In certain phases, Rivera confirmed. Not because you did anything, but because Lydia intended it that way. My throat tightened. For years, I'd wondered why the beginning of our marriage felt so real, so warm, and when exactly that warmth changed. Now I knew. It wasn't real stability. It was engineered stability. A trap disguised as love. I pushed the tablet away. I want justice for him, I said quietly. And for myself. But this changes things. Rivera nodded. It's why we wanted you to know before the next step. What next step? The prosecutor looked at me with solemn eyes. We're preparing to bring Lydia in for her full custodial interview. She's requested legal counsel. But before she does, she sent a message verbally to our agents. My pulse quickened. What message? Rivera took a breath. She said, Tell Amelia I always finish what I start. A cold shiver slid through me. That's not a threat we take lightly, he added. Which brings us to the security recommendation. You need protective detail. I'm not hiding, I said immediately. You're not hiding. You're being smart. Rivera folded his arms. We've dealt with people like Lydia before. When their power collapses, they become unpredictable. Unpredictable. Dangerous. Cornered. I exhaled slowly. Fine. Assign someone. Rivera signaled to the doorway. A woman stepped in, early 40s, sharp gaze, posture like a blade. This is Agent Mara Quinn, Rivera said. She'll be your primary contact and escort. Mara shook my hand firmly. My job is to keep you breathing, preferably without bullet holes. I blinked. Comforting. You'll get used to me. Later that day, I visited the stabilization center again, this time under Mara's watchful eye. She stood near the doorway while I sat across from Nathan in the same glass-walled room. But something had changed in him. He looked lighter, still fractured but more aware. Rivera showed me the early recordings, he said quietly. The conditioning, the triggers, the scripts I didn't even realize were scripts. I nodded. I saw some of them too. His eyes softened with grief. I don't know how to forgive myself for the things I did while they controlled me. You don't have to forgive yourself yet, I said. You just have to rebuild. He let out a long breath. The doctors say my mind is trying to reconnect natural patterns. I'm remembering things differently now. Memories without their interference. That's progress. Then he looked at me with a vulnerability I hadn't seen in years. I'm remembering you. My breath caught. The real you, he added. The way you laughed before I started losing myself. The way you argued with me about everything. How alive things felt before, he swallowed. Before they rewrote me. Emotion curled tight in my chest. Amelia, he whispered, whatever happens, thank you for giving me the chance to be someone beyond their control. I didn't respond, not because I didn't feel anything, but because I felt too much. Focus on your recovery, I said gently. Don't focus on us. That's not fair to either of us. He nodded slowly. Maybe someday, I'll be someone worth meeting again. The words landed like soft thunder as Mara drove me back to the hotel. She studied me in the rearview mirror. You care about him, she said, not a question. I care about the version of him they tried to erase, I answered. And the version that hurt you? I turned to the window. I don't confuse victims with villains. She nodded approvingly. Good, because villains rarely stop at the first attack. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. Just 3 words. You're next, Amelia. Mara leaned forward. Show me. I handed her the phone. Her jaw tightened. This isn't just Lydia's tone. Someone else is involved. Who? I whispered. We'll find out. But deep down, I already knew this wasn't a warning. It was a declaration. The Cross Empire might have fallen, but its shadows were still moving. The threatening text echoed in my mind long after Mara locked down my phone and filed an incident report. You're next, Amelia. It wasn't Lydia's handwriting, but it carried her venom. Yet something about it felt different. Sharper. More calculated. We're escalating your protection, Mara said as she typed rapidly. This threat wasn't impulsive. It was delivered through a masked relay with professional routing. Whoever sent it knows how to hide. Someone in the family? I asked. Possibly. Or someone who benefited from the Cross Empire. People don't surrender power quietly. She wasn't wrong. That evening, the hotel suite felt unusually quiet. Too quiet. I stood by the window overlooking Ravenford's skyline. Glass towers glowing like beacons in the fog. My reflection stared back. Bruise fading, eyes harder than before. There were footsteps in the hallway. Mara's signal, 2 taps, 1 pause, 1 tap. She entered with Rivera behind her. We have updates, Rivera said. And complications. Of course there were. He pulled up a file. First, the good news. Lydia is officially in custody. She refused a deal, refused counsel, refused to answer questions. But she's locked down. A fragment of tension released from my chest. And the bad news? Rivera hesitated. We received a call from the Zurich office investigating the overseas accounts. Money hasn't moved since the freezes, except 1 transfer made 5 hours ago. How? I whispered. Everything should be frozen. It should be. The transfer didn't come from a Cross Foundation account. It came from a personal account belonging to... He paused, choosing his words. Someone we didn't expect. He turned the tablet toward me. A name glowed on the screen. Elias Rowan. My breath hitched. Nathan's godfather. Former family attorney. Man I'd met only twice, but who, according to records, held deep influence over the Cross estate. He hasn't been in Ravenford for years, I murmured. Exactly, Rivera said. He resurfaced the moment Lydia fell. Mara crossed her arms. This isn't coincidence. It wasn't. Elias Rowan had always hovered at the margins of the family. Never center stage, but always present in the Cross archives I dissected. A strategist. A fixer. Someone who preferred to operate where light didn't reach. What was the transfer for? I asked. Rivera flipped the screen. A single offshore account. A large figure. Labeled simply. Rowan Holdings Retention Fund. My pulse hammered. Retention? Retention for what? Loyalty, Mara said. Or silence. Or both. The implications sank in like ice water. If Rowan still had resources, then Lydia's fall was only the first battle. Rowan could mobilize allies, those who feared exposure, those who owed the crosses, those who thrived in the shadows the family cast. He's taken over the operation, Rivera said grimly. And, unlike Lydia, he doesn't care about appearances. A chill crawled up my spine. Why threaten me? I whispered. Because you destabilized everything, Mara said. To people like Rowan, you're not a daughter-in-law. You're a liability. The next morning, I returned to the stabilization center. Nathan had requested another supervised meeting, and despite everything happening around us, part of me needed closure, or perhaps clarity, before the next phase began. Mara stayed outside the door this time, but within view. Nathan looked better, slightly. His hands no longer shook, and his voice sounded more grounded, less echoing from someone else's script. You look tired, he said softly. I managed a dry smile, just learning how many enemies your family collected. A shadow crossed his features. I'm sorry. I wish I could undo it. You weren't the architect. He nodded, though guilt lingered like a bruise. Then he swallowed. They told me about the threat. Of course they did. Amelia, you have to be careful. Rowan isn't like my mother. He doesn't need power to justify cruelty. I lifted my chin. I don't scare easily. You should, he whispered. Rowan was the one who first suggested conditioning me. A wave of nausea hit me. What? It wasn't Mother's idea alone, he said. Rowan believed a calibrated heir would protect the Cross legacy better than a volatile one. I didn't know until now how far he'd gone. The room felt smaller. Nathan, did he ever? Yes. His voice cracked. He attended some sessions. He evaluated progress. He gave instructions. My stomach twisted with new understanding. Lydia wasn't the mastermind. She was a soldier. Rowan was the architect. Why didn't you tell anyone? I whispered. I didn't remember. They fragmented things. Compartmentalized them. Compartmentalized him. I exhaled shakily. Nathan, the investigation is expanding. Rowan has money. He has connections. And he may come after anyone linked to exposing the crosses. His face tensed with fear. That includes you. I know. You should leave Ravenford. I shook my head. Running won't fix this. And it won't stop him. His eyes darkened. Then promise me something. What? If Rowan comes for you, don't face him alone. Before I could answer, Mara knocked once and opened the door. Amelia, she said, we have to go. Now. My pulse jumped. What happened? She held up her phone, an alert, glowing bright. Rivera's message. Emergency, warrant for Rowan refused. He's vanished. And we intercepted a second message. Addressed to you. My throat tightened. What does it say? I asked. Mara looked at me. Eyes sharp, voice steady. You took my air. Now I'll take back what was mine. A cold dread spread through me. Not just a threat. A promise. And Rowan was no longer hiding in the shadows. He was hunting. Mara didn't rush often, but when she did, it meant the world had tilted. We moved through the stabilization center like a quiet storm, her scanning corners, checking sight lines, one hand hovering near the weapon she rarely needed to fully draw. Explain, I demanded as we stepped into the brittle morning light. Rowan disappeared an hour before agents reached his safe house, she said. And the message meant for you was routed through 3 international servers. He's not improvising, he's executing. Executing what? I whispered. Leverage, she replied. Retaliation. Control. The Cross trilogy of power. We reached the SUV. Mara pushed me inside, slid into the seat beside me, and locked the doors. What does he want? I asked. To protect a legacy, she said, and erase the person who dismantled it. The SUV sped toward federal headquarters. My phone remained sealed in evidence mode, but the words still rang in my mind like a wound reopening. You took my air. Now I'll take back what was mine. Elias Rowan had always been the phantom behind the family, rarely seen, always present. He mentored Lydia, shaped the cross public image, orchestrated every strategic marriage and alliance. If Lydia was the weapon, Rowan was the hand holding it. And when power shifts, hands lash out. By the time we reached the office, Rivera stood waiting, face tight. Amelia, you need to see this. He led us into a monitoring room, screens glowing with the cold blue of surveillance feeds. One of the analysts magnified a paused frame, a grainy image from a traffic camera, a man stepping into a black sedan. Tall, lean, black overcoat, glasses glinting under streetlights. Elias Rowan. He looked unbothered, like a man catching a taxi to dinner, not a fugitive evading federal pursuit. He was 20 minutes from your hotel, Rivera said. A chill ran through me. Why was he there? I whispered. Looking for you, Mara answered. Another analyst turned. We intercepted a communication on a secure relay. He isn't trying to flee the country. He's circling Ravenford. Circling. Hunting. What's the plan? I asked. Rivera exchanged a look with Mara. You won't like it, he said. Try me. You're bait. I blinked. Excuse me. Mara stepped forward. Amelia, Rowan isn't running. He's approaching. Agents are losing hours chasing someone who isn't trying to escape. He wants proximity to you. That gives us an advantage. So you want to use me, I said. We want to protect you, Rivera corrected. But we also need to stop him before he goes after Nathan or anyone else. My stomach twisted. If I agree, what exactly do I have to do? Nothing risky, Mara said. You follow your normal schedule. Supervised, protected, monitored. Rowan will reveal himself. People like him believe they're smarter than everyone else. Their arrogance is their tell. I closed my eyes briefly. My life had already become a chessboard. Maybe this was the final move. Fine, I said, but only because I want this over. The next 48 hours unfolded in a tense rhythm. Federal agents rotated shifts around me. Mara stayed at my side like a shadow. I moved between safe locations, hotel, office, courthouse, with teams discreetly trailing. Everywhere we went, the city felt watched. A figure lingering too long. A car idling across the street. A reflection in glass that didn't match anyone near me. Mara checked each one. Most were harmless. Some were suspicious. None were Rowan. Yet the feeling persisted. He was here. Close enough to see me. Close enough to choose his moment. On the third night, everything snapped into place. Mara and I were returning to the hotel. Rain slicked the roads, turning the city into a film noir painting. Lightning flashed in the distance. As we entered the underground parking structure, Mara stiffened. Something's wrong, she murmured. The hair on my arms rose. Rivera's voice crackled through the calm. Team 2, hold position. We're detecting a device on level 3. Explosive. Mara asked. Yes, came the grim reply. Triggered by motion sensors. My breath vanished. We need to get out, I began, but Mara put a hand on my shoulder. No, that device wasn't meant to kill you. She locked eyes with Rivera's team leader. It was meant to push her upstairs, toward the elevators. That's when realization hit. He's here, I whispered. A voice echoed through the garage. Calm, measured, terrifyingly familiar. Hello, Amelia. Rowan. He stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, hands relaxed at his sides, dressed in black like an undertaker preparing a final arrangement. His gaze was steady, almost kind. You dismantled a dynasty, he said softly, but you forgot one thing. Mara placed herself between us, weapon drawn. Don't move. Rowan's lips twitched. I never move without purpose. A rustle sounded above us. Agents shifted. Mara kept her aim steady. You took my heir, Rowan said. Years of shaping. Years of work. Everything calculated. Perfected. And you broke him. I freed him, I said. My voice didn't shake. Freedom, Rowan murmured. A romantic delusion. Legacy needs stability, not chaos. Legacy built on abuse isn't legacy, I snapped. It's rot. His eyes hardened. You cannot comprehend the cost of greatness. I don't need to comprehend it, I said. I destroyed it. Silence. Then Rowan smiled. A thin, deadly line. I admire your conviction. His hand twitched. Mara fired first. A single shot. Precise. Controlled. Rowan crumpled with a soft, almost peaceful exhale, like a man surrendering to inevitability. Agents swarmed. Mara checked his pulse, then met my gaze. It's over, she said. But as I stared at Rowan's fallen form, I knew something Lydia once told me in her own poisonous way had been true. Power never dies cleanly. It leaves echoes, shadows, ghosts. 2 months later, after testimony, hearings, and dismantling the last remnants of the cross web, Nathan was released from the stabilization center, not to reclaim his family's throne. There was no throne left, but to begin a real life, one he could choose. At the courthouse steps, he approached me hesitantly. Amelia, he said, I don't expect anything, but I wanted to tell you, I'm finally becoming someone I recognize. I smiled softly. Good. You deserve that. Are you leaving Raven Ford? He asked. Not yet. There's work to do. He nodded. If our paths cross one day, when we're both different people, maybe we talk again. Maybe, I said. We parted with no promises, only closure, the kind that feels like opening a window after years of stale air. That night, in my quiet new apartment overlooking the harbor, I recorded one final message for the investigators. I'm done hiding. I'm done surviving. I'm ready to live again. And if you've stayed with me through this entire journey, do one last thing before you go. Subscribe and comment where you're watching from, so this story reaches more people who need strength, who need truth, and who need to remember. Even the most powerful empires fall when someone brave enough decides to stand up.